Well, as I was explaining to some of you, today's topic was initially digital business. But considering that after talking with some of you, you were interested in knowing how the market, in terms of the jobs, in terms of future opportunities and so on, is evolving, I consider to change the presentation because you already had time to talk about, to review and to understand and learn about digital business. But perhaps could be very interesting to know what is happening today in the market, related jobs, related positions, how the companies are changing their perception of what are the skills and the profiles that they want, and what are the most effective techniques to improve your career based on what we have showing to you, based on what we know that is happening in the market. The first thing is, I'm going to talk to you from the experience. As Hamad explained you yesterday, I have been CIO 7 times, I have been CEO 3 times. 10 years ago, I created my own consultancy company. Now we are 800 people, and we have 3 divisions. Strategic consultancy, IT, IT external services, and headhunting. And when I created the company, the headhunting company, 30 months ago, since that time to today, we have recruited 23 CIOs, 2 general managers, 4 HR directors, and 4 CFOs, and 1 marketing director. So related CIOs, we are the company that is recruiting the highest number in Spain on CIOs and CDOs. So this is what happens today in our company. So I can explain you from the real experience what is happening. We are not only hiring for Spain, for a Spanish company, we are also recruiting for companies like Porsche, Volkswagen Group, Beringer, Roche, Allianz, and Zurich. All of them in international positions. Okay? So, the first thing that you have to be aware is, it's a big opportunity because the position of the companies is changing. In 2002, these were the Standard & Poor's most important companies that they have. So here we have companies like, with the ones that exceeded the index. There were companies so important as Texaco, as Compaq, as Sears, as Palm, and so on. And now, what we have today is that the most important companies in this index, but not only in this index, on whatever list of companies that you could find, we have companies like Netflix, like eBay, like Google, like Amazon, and so on. One of the things that we know that are going to happen in the market is the market is going to be concentrated. Retail, it's going to be it somehow for companies like Alibaba and Amazon. Hotels has a big deal to manage, which is Airbnb and all the similar companies like Airbnb. In transportation, we know what is happening not only with Uber or Cabify, but other players that are going to enter into the market. Media, we know what is happening with the newspapers today, or even the TVs, because Netflix and also other content-free platforms like Facebook and so on are getting their customers. So all the market is changing. So the first thing that you have to be aware is, in which company do I want to work? In a traditional one or in a future one? Future, not. Today's one. Okay, this is what happens. The second thing that we know is that not only in Europe, but in all the world, we have a lack of IT or digital profiles. Most of the companies today know that making a good big data analysis, which means analyze very well the customer, analyze very well the products, analyze very well the production, and so on, is critical. And to make such a kind of analysis, they need professionals, not only programmers, but also managers into their positions, like CFOs or marketing managers or operations managers and so on, that understands the benefits that they can get from these analytics that can be done. And that's why we know that this is a report that came from the European Commission, that they are aware that for one side we have a lack of IT professionals to provide service, but also we have a lack of professionals, non-IT, that requires digital skills to improve their processes. So the reality is, if you are such a kind of professionals, you have as a minimum more opportunities to get a good position into the future. Okay? And this report, it's the same that you can find out in any country in the world. There's a need for digital/IT profiles. And this is something that is happening in all the industries, from universities, from education, banking, legal. I was with the second biggest, bigger lawyers buffet in Spain. I was with them 1 month ago because they told me, Jordi, how can face all these legal solutions that are appearing into the market that could automate the creation of a contract without having the need of paying a lawyer? Of course that will need some need for lawyers, but only to deal with very difficult and specific things. But all the normal processes that the lawyers are doing will be replaced for the new legal automated solutions that are appearing into the market. Again, it's happening with all the markets: telecom, business, media, technology, and so on. So you have to be aware that the opportunity or the risk is in any industry. Because these changes, these opportunities that the company perceive also affect not only the different sectors, but also affect to all the processes that they have, from the distribution and marketing, to the product and service innovation, to the risk optimization. So it's something that affects to any aspect into the company. All the companies that consider that digitalization it's only implement an e-commerce, now they are being aware that if you implement an e-commerce, but you don't have a good logistics, and you don't have a good user assistance, and you don't have a good transportation, then you are killed. Because there will be your competitors that, apart of having the same type of e-commerce, they will have the appropriate logistics, the appropriate customer service, and so on, and then you will be replaced. Okay, so this impact, this need of digital skill profiles, it's happening in all the processes of the company. These needs could be structured into these 6 areas. A specific digital business, so people that is going to work with an e-commerce company or something, or a company like that. There will be required digital marketing, because at the end, marketing is the process that helps us to understand what the customer wants, also help us to provide the customer what the message that is interesting for us, and so on. Digital development, and that means that if I want to apply any solution, whatever solution in any process, it's required they understand what are the best methods to do it, agile, development, and so on. Analytics, again, these analytics needs came from the CFO, from the operations, to make predictive maintenance also in any process into the company. It's going to be required a higher level of analytics. Industry 4.0, which means, you know, robotics, Internet of Things, predictive maintenance, artificial intelligence, and so on. And then also we will have new ways of working that today doesn't exist, some of them, and we have the opportunity to create it. For instance, in Zurich, in insurance, they told me 2 days ago that they are thinking in crowd development, which means having platforms that allow to them to contract software developers all around the world to make just 1 day of development, but having all the control about the development without the need of contracting a big software company and so on. So anyone is trying to find out new solutions to taking profit of the tools. Well, and also we have another report, no? The World Economic Forum indicates that these are the average salaries that all these profiles could have. So from the data scientist, again, it's required to analyze and take more precise decisions in any process. So data scientist, it's going to be well paid for sure, but then we have a full set of new skills, new job profiles that could be needed and also are going to be well paid. This chart, some of you already know it. One day it was in 2012, no, in 2010, a group of researchers, professors in this case, decided to understand what is the most important for a company to be a leader into their sector. And what they did was they took 200 companies of 10 different sectors. Sectors means industry, logistics, marketing, and so on. So they took the first 20 companies, and from these 20 companies, they took the first one, the best one, the leader, and asked themselves, what has these companies that makes them the leader into their sector? I'm talking that perhaps between 20,000 companies, again, they took the 200 more important, and from these 200 more important, they took the 10 which are the leaders. And they arrived to the conclusion that the most important is that their management team have this kind of skills. The management team of those leader companies are people that has a better orientation to innovation in products and services than the first 20 companies into the sector. They have a better competence-based management than the 20 best into the sector, and so on. So these competencies are the most important if a company wants to be a leader. And what the CEOs and the owners of the companies and what are the skills that the private equity companies are asking to us when recruiting someone for the management board? They're asking us such a kind of skills into those directors. So if you want to be considered a good professional for a management team into a leader company, you have to fulfill all those different skills that are indicated here. Okay? So, knowing that, what is the best method if you want to find a new job? To find a new job, there's 3 methods. The first one is the passive. The passive means LinkedIn, means Indeed, or job aggregators. And what does it mean, passive? Today, 80% of the recruitment processes came from LinkedIn. So the own people, the own company has someone that enters into LinkedIn and looks for the profiles that they want. That means that you have to have an excellent profile in LinkedIn. And what does it mean to have an excellent profile on LinkedIn? It means that the summary that it's located in LinkedIn and the title that you are indicating should be the best to be found when someone enters, I want a chief marketing officer, chief logistic officer, chief data officer, and so on. So again, in LinkedIn, the most important is the keywords in the title and the summary that you are indicating. Okay? This is the most important. And don't forget that LinkedIn, at the end, it's something that you're using to sell yourself. So it's not something to indicate what you have done. So if someone of you has been working in a project to create very good lights, and you say, well, I'm an expert in creating lighting, especially for presentations and so on. Okay, it's going to find you one person perhaps that is interested. But if you said, expert designing in lighting for illuminate the best speech in the world and manager of strategy into, then they are going to find you. Do you know what I mean? Okay. So passive search. Second, active passive. What does it mean? That you have to active all the alarms that you could do in LinkedIn too, or in Indeed. And that, what does it mean? It means that in LinkedIn, you know that you are able to indicate, please send me a message each time that any company is looking for a CFO. So indicate, you have to get all these messages, all these alarms, and you can decide if participate in the process or not. So by receiving the alarm, nothing happens, but the highest number of alarms that you receive, the more probabilities that you have to be able to access to the position that is interesting for you. Okay? And be active. And what does it mean, be active? It means networking for one side, so put in contact with the highest number of headhunters that you can, and also be aware that in which companies your profile could be useful, could be interesting, and proactively send your CV via a headhunter to that company. What does it mean? If you send your CV directly to that company without any job position and so on, or without any job alert, that company could consider that, okay, this person, it's desperate and it's sending me, this is for sure what they are going to think. But if they receive that CV from a headhunter that indicates, look, I have an excellent profile for you, someone who is very good, then they are going to take a look on your profile and your CV, and perhaps you will have lucky and they will hire you. Okay? So passive, passive, and active. And how to improve my job at my current company. Okay. This is what, as I told you, the companies today required from the people that are working in most of middle-sized, middle even to small, even middle to high to large companies. They want new talents, which means people that has a good attitude, that has innovative attitude. They want people that it's concentrate into the customer to provide the customer what they want. People that it's rethinking, it's able to rethink the business model. People who is agile into taking decisions. People who is even agile, fast, and so on, data-driven. So don't take decisions from the air. So they take decisions based on analytics and so on. So this is the main skills that they want, the technical skills that they want from the people that they are hired. And here the point is, as you know very well, the main challenge that you have inside the company is to let know your company that the digital is something very important for them, because not all the managers into the company will understand it, from the CEO to the rest of the management board and so on. So there is a big process of sales. So those tech leaders should be considered like business partners. You in your company should be considered as the consultant that is the most expert in technology and innovation, but also the best expert in business, and that are going to help you on how to improve their business based on digital, based on technology. Okay, so you have to be perceived as the best IT consultant that they could have. And that means to understand very well what is the business processes that you have in your company. So those IT technicians that are only thinking in the platform, the cloud, the database, and so on, okay, they will stay into their company, because of course that it's required that someone keeps the infrastructure alive, but they are not going to be considered as someone that could be seated into the management board to change, to innovate, to create added value for the company. So you have to have a good understanding of the different business processes and the value chain, and be able to negotiate with your counterparts into each one of these processes or departments. How to become a digital leader? Okay, when someone or even actively has a problem, identify, understand the problem, be able to inspire, be able to create the sense of importance to change, and also join to great people, create a good team, define how are you going to do it, and how are you going to measure the business success, but understand that the culture normally it's a strategy. So if your company don't have the appropriate culture, even you are a very good strategist, even you have any type of solution, you are going to face and fight and be killed if you are not aware of the culture that your company has. Okay? So how we can solve that culture problem? Then we call our friend John Kotter, and John Kotter, who is the best expert in change, in process of change in the world, explain us what to do. The first thing that we have to do is to establish a sense of urgency. Okay, we have to implement a customer-centric process, so we have to implement a good CRM. No, because we always have solved based on the confidence. My nose told me that that customer. Okay, no problem, no problem. You are going to be killed in 2 days. So be ready to pay to fire everyone. Well, what are you saying? Okay, look at your environment, look at your competitors, and you will see what is happening. You are creating a sense of urgency. Create the guiding coalition. I will explain you after that what does it mean. Develop a change vision. Communicate. If you want to be part of a management board or a management team, there's one thing which is important here in China, in Russia, in whatever. You have to have ability to sell. You have to have a good ability to communicate. You have to be able to empathize with what your boss or your colleagues and your team wants, and be able to explain it well. Communicate the vision. Empower each time that things are going as appropriate. So generate this short-term win. Never let up, and incorporate this constant and continuous improvement mindset into the organization. So what does it mean, this coalition? In any company of the world, in any organization, you will find Mr. Yes, Mr. No, and Mr. We will see. Who is Mr. Yes? Mr. Yes is or are all those people that when you propose to do something, they said, yes, let's do it. Let's create a new product. Okay, let's do it. Let's make, let's try to think about a new business division. Okay, let's go. Let's create a new strategy to be more competitive. Please, go ahead. Okay, these are Mr. Yes. I'm sure that all of you are able to identify absolutely who is Mr. Yes or who are Mr. Yes into your organizations today. I'm sure, because there exists something that is psychologically, well, this is not a joke. This is, there are a lot of psychological studies that demonstrate that there are people who is more proactive in terms of doing things and is not afraid of change. So Mr. Yes is your colleague, is your friend, is going to be your love for all your life, okay? Then we have Mr. No, which is that character of the name of the rose, Mr. No. Mr. No, I'm sure that you know and you have well identified also who are Mr. No into your organizations. What do you think if no? Could we? No. What if? No, it's possible. We never has worked in this way. No. Mr. No, it's something, I will say, well, something that is negative. It's never positive. It's something that is going to eat your calm, your capability, everything. So please, be afraid of Mr. No. Keep them 200 kilometers far from you, but avoid any relationship with Mr. No. Okay? And Mr. Will See are all those people that are in the middle. So depending on the success that Mr. Yes or Mr. No have, they will put in one side or in the other. So here the good strategy is get supported by all those positive people and demonstrate to the rest of the people that being positive is the good strategy. In the organizations, you will find 20% Mr. Yes, 20% Mr. No, 60% Mr. Will See. And this is, again, something that has been well studied. Some of you will say, change is impossible. And I will tell you, nothing is impossible to change. That lady over there, it's Helen Keller. She was born blind and mute deaf. Finally, she achieved to be able to make classes at the university and make speeches and communicate with others. Being, having birth, blind and mute deaf. Stephen Hawking, you all know about him, about his problems, but even though he was one of the most important astronomers that we could have in the history, and Albeiro Vargas. Albeiro Vargas, his child, when he was 9 years old, he decided to help all the elder people into one of the poorest cities in Colombia. And he, being only 9 years old, create a network of childs like him that the only thing that they do, instead of playing or so on, was helping elder people and very poor people. And if you consider that in your company you are suffering, it's something very difficult to change and so on, consider what happens in the wars. What is more difficult than surviving a war? And a lot of people is able not only to survive the war, but also to change and improve their capacities and their skills passing through a war. Why people is able to do such a kind of things? Because they have helps. Ellen Keller has Anna Sullivan, who was the person that helped her into teaching how to read, how to speak, how to communicate, and so on. Albeiro created an organization who already exists. It's called Los Angeles de Bucaramanga. Stephen Hawking has ACAD, which is an IT-based and a computer-based system that helps him to communicate and to understand and to read with others. And for the Second World War, the English Army has the Spitfire that helped them to support a pass through the Second World War and all the problems that they had. So, the best tools to improve your position. First, to get the best training. Of course, training is what you are doing here is one of today's, the best tool that you could have. Get experience from senior professionals and senior colleagues and your boss in order to understand what they did in order to make things proper, to make things well, to what they do in order to understand what are the things that should be done in order to improve your career. Be aware of the innovations. So if you are closed in what you know today, it's difficult to be able to understand all the opportunities that there are into the market. And get support from your department of HR and department of training, if you have in your organization, to help you to understand how to improve yourself inside the organization. And two last recommendations. If you don't sell yourself, no one will do. So to get a good position, it's a question of selling. You have to sell your achievements. You have to sell your good skills. You have to sell your attitude. So this is something that you have to do constantly. And networking is very important. That is the architect, how is the name of, I don't remember exactly the name. Sir, he built up one of the main antennas that we have here. And this is Mr. Saatchi and Saatchi. I will explain you the history finally of Saatchi and Saatchi. You know who Saatchi and Saatchi is? He's one of the most important publicity companies. And when he created his company, he was nothing compared with the rest of the companies that there were, the publicity companies, the advertisement companies that there are. And what he did was, okay, I only have $10,000 after being knocking on all the doors, after making lots of publicity. No one wants to hear about him. You are nothing. You are not well known. We only want to work with the best. So nothing. He only has $10,000. And then he decided to do, I'm going to buy business cards, the best ones in New York. And he went to the place that the main bankers create their own business cards. So he spent big money on that business cards for him. Then he went to the best restaurant and rented the best restaurant for make a small party, but the best of New York. And then he sent an invitation to their main potential customers with the new business card, indicating that they are going to have to eat something in the best restaurant. And those main potential customers said, okay, who is that guy? We don't know him. But using such a kind of business cards and inviting us to such a good restaurant, for sure, that has to be the best publicity, advertisement, marketing agency that we could find out. We are going to contract him. And he became the most important publicity company in the world.